Okay, hello everybody. The screen is a little bit blurred there in terms of my own. I'm going to just quickly share a screen here so we can get into the lesson. And let me go from here. Just a second. And I am going to hop on over so we can. Yeah, there we go. Take a look at this card. Bear with me. Let's just get this done. Okay. No editing. All right, let's share the screen one more time, and we'll see now that there we go. We are going to be chatting about and briefly about the important half dozen I've mentioned before in a previous lesson, and we did a little bit of an outline. So I'm going to just break it down. It's going to be quite a quick lesson as well, and you can find this all in Valerie Giller's book, which is Beyond Powerful Radio. Right. Okay, so I'm just going to move me up here so I'm not in the way. Okay, so if you remember from previous lessons that I did put for particular for you in terms of talent management, yeah, we had the important half dozen actually, obviously surface and spotlight there, which focused on the six aspects, which we'll break down as we move along throughout this particular lesson. And it's good for you, obviously, your Snoop sessions because you have to tick off all these particular boxes and all and every one of these particular boxes. Okay, so music, want to check out the obviously our playlist, get through the hours, music, tempo, clock structure. Excuse me for that. So let's close this here. Screens are popping up and down. Okay, content. There's relevant, relatable, great stories. Was the emotion, empathy, callers valuable? Are the benchmarks met that we set up, or do we have water cooling effect? And are we teasing properly? Again, it seems like I'm rushing through this only because this is the again the outline of it, and I will go into it in depth. And let's go multi-platform. I'm just going to say the basics. I'm going to say performance. I'm going to say imaging and money matters so that we can actually get into the details of every single one. Okay, so let's look at the music there. So when we do, again, in terms of like being able to meet like our, I would say benchmark standards, but just the things that actually have to be done for us to be putting together a good radio show, a great radio show, we've got to look at our music. And these are all comments and notes that I've made for myself for you from based obviously on the textbooks outlines here, and again it's something that we've relayed throughout the year to you as third years, and that you are obviously implementing hopefully in your F3 as well as when you are going to continue being on air for your S1. Right. And obviously through your lives as well. That'll be great as well. Okay. So with our playlist, we always say to stick to the playlist. It is compiled by your music compiler and has the correct balance of all existing categories in rotation that reflect the listener's music wants via focus groups and what top charts indicate to be hits with your demographic. Okay, so again, as I say this, as you know that from previous lessons, I will explain to you a little bit further. So we have explained the importance of the playlist and why the rotation is very important because we want to keep them listening. We want to keep the listeners listening for longest. Time spent listening is based on the way that we rotate our playlist, right? So we work in very basic categories this year. And particularly with my students, we did four categories. We did top 40, we did bubbling under, we did alternative local music, so stuff, let's say, from Soul Candy, etc., or let's say social media, hits or wonders, whatever it may be, as well as we did classics as well. And we rotated that across an hour clock. Now, the thing is that with such with such little, I would say, categories, it's quite difficult to actually rotate effectively. But when you obviously are working at a radio station, you will see that there are I'd say counters. There's enough. There's a lot more than just four. Um, categories that will help you obviously rotate quite effectively. Those categories are also updated on, I'm going to say almost, I would say the daily, so that it is effective. I suppose it's not that drastic, but the thing is that we do continuously move that music up, down, updated, and obviously again, so that our rotation is immediate, I would say. Okay. So we learned about this in the focus groups, right? You went and you did your auditorium, or your AMTs, your auditorium music testing, and you did find that that certain songs were more popular than others, and so you include them into your playlist and so on and so forth. So you've gone through the sample structure of how to do this properly. Okay, all right, we'll get through the hours music. So the thing is, music is top of the list alongside spots, news, and promotions. Not one DJ can justify why the link is actually more important than any one of these service elements, right? Okay, so we want to be able to make sure that the music that is playlisted, I mean, you're going to have a good excuse as to why it is that, let's say, you haven't played any or no, any one of the music songs, the songs, not the music songs, the songs that have been playlisted to you. So you have to have good justification. Yes, some music compilers do um, they will playlist more music just in case for an hour, and then obviously will balance the last couple of ones that are in the hour. To make sure that if it is dropped, it's okay. The tempo, according to your rotation, as well as the temperament of the show. Perhaps it's a speciality show specifically. I mean, that the temperament of the show changes completely, right? And so then the music playlisting particularly has to be I say monitored, because we have to rotate accordingly, according to the station's format, and again, according to those speciality regions. Maybe it's a dance show, maybe it's a classic show, maybe it's a request show, maybe it is whatever, right? So we must maintain a natural tempo across the execution of the show. Again, these are things that I'm not saying, oh, just because it's a new compiler, you don't have to worry about that. Like you're doing it right now. We don't want to have these so automation is one thing, and we can program RCS, for example, as a playback system, to the moon and back. But the thing is, again, we need some quality um, intervention, right? So that we can make sure that the temperament of the show flows. The clock structure, the show clock is pivotal, as you've seen in constructing all the show dynamics, right? So this is why yeah. I mean, I was going to say it's the most important thing. No, I've said that about many things in radio and in class as well, about many things, particularly my kids will also know, and I'm sure I've said it in videos before, that like being present is literally what in talking to and servicing one listener is where you find all the magic in radio, not anything else. But definitely the show clock is up there with the rest of them, right? The show clock is pivotal so that we can construct shows that are balanced. Okay, so let's move over to the content. Okay, so content, let's look at the different aspects of it. Content needs to be, as we've spoken to you before, relevant. Relevant means that content needs to be relevant to the demographic. And I say this at that time of day, on that day of the week, that week of the month, and in that month of the year, because it's going to change continuously. Do you understand? So we've got to look again, once again, at the station format. We've got to then obviously go down to who our target or our core audience is. And then we got to base it on these little aspects here that I've said to you so that we can choose effectively what it is that we will consider relevant for our listeners, relatable. So this is part of your assignment as well. This concept of how is it relatable? Is it relatable? Like, are your shows relatable? Have you constructed the show well enough to touch home for that listener? So it's not really whether you are relatable as a human being only. It's about whether or not you've made the show particularly relatable to a listener. Did it touch home? Did it really center well with them? And then, they said, well, I mean, this is genuinely like, it's like speaking my hashtag life. You understand? Great stories. Did you go with what you came up with first, or did you explore better ways to enrich a story? Like, a good idea is a good idea. I get it. So you come across it and you say, okay, well, I mean, look, like I'm happy with that, but really, is that the best idea? And you can search forever for the best idea, but you have to have some kind of, which is obviously what you don't want. I mean, the thing is, you've got to have some kind of man, I wouldn't say benchmark. Benchmark's only on one way, but you've got to have a ceiling as well, where in between there's a whole bunch of quality criteria that are met, and you're actually hitting like a great story. You'll feel it, and you'll say, "Well, I don't really need to actually move further with this. I've really gone up, found different dimensions, and I've gone forward with understanding." that this is the best I'm going to give to my listener today. As I said, relatable and relevant. Was there emotion and empathy? So, if you're incapable of being an empathetic human being, then you're definitely in the wrong business. Empathy means we can actually touch, feel, see from another person's point of view. Theatre to the mind is crucial to be able to be empathetically relatable to what a listener is affected by today. I think that's quite straightforward, and we also have been going through that for the entire year, or for all 3 years, right? Callers that are valuable. So in the practical, I'm getting a lot of, let's say, so just because you have a voice note or just because you have a call, it doesn't mean that they are the best one that you got there. I'm getting a lot of mediocre voice notes that have been playing on the show. No, you got to push forward. And you say, obviously, how does this work in a real life setting? I mean, the thing is that we can either go from the WhatsApp, obviously the whatever WhatsApp platform. I'm saying WhatsApp platform, but the software that we're using to process those WhatsApps, and then go through and see who might actually potentially be a great caller. Call them. I would call them. I'm a big fan of obviously calling them and seeing whether I can get some more value out of them. But be picky when it comes to quality callers that can add value to the story that you are telling. Right, benchmarks being met. It's not. We don't want to kind of a high five you just because you're getting the benchmarks correct. Remember, every time you set a new benchmark, that means you've got to obviously excel further than that, right? So benchmarks are normally set right in the beginning. We say, well, we say you got to do X, Y, and Z. You have to do it. It's mandatory, right? And then you've got to obviously excel beyond it to be able to grow, and then be able to understand that those benchmarks will be reset and reset so that we can grow in different. So not just growth is not just up this way. It's growth is also this way as well, and this way, and whatever it may be. Right. So benchmarks are not debatable. The water cooler effect. So we've always said, did what you say and what you do on your show like carry any weight to a listener wanting to carry on the conversation outside from listening to the radio itself. So you've done this great piece of content, and there was a great interview, or these callers were very emotional, and they added so much, let's say, drama. I would say melodrama, even in a good way. You understand that it got you thinking, got the listener thinking, and it really made them like carry on the conversation. Do you understand? The water cooler effect is just metaphorical. So let's say we're standing around a water cooler, and then one person says to another, "Oh, you hear this? You hear that? Oh, I can't believe that this is happening in our lives because they got it from your show." Okay, so did you manage to get something that was put something together that was so interesting and so compelling that people would carry on the conversation in their normal lives through their acts, through their actual wording, and the spoken word, through their thoughts, whatever it may be, right? And then obviously we have teasing. Effective teasing means more time spent listening. Okay. So this one been carrying on for a long time. Let me move my beautiful Beck. Okay. Just out the way so you can actually see. Are using available platforms with the correct context. Okay. So that means, for example, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, audio hosting channels for podcasting, like for example, Iona, or I think it's I haven't used that word forever. Mixcloud, Mixcloud, yeah, SoundCloud, whatever it may be, right? Or even the station's landing page where a lot of competitions are hosted, where there might be like obviously, I mean, the internet versions of the radio stations are sitting there as well, so we can also promote across there, whatever it may be, right? Like we can't copy and paste stuff that fits on Facebook to Twitter or to TikTok or to Instagram or whatever it may be. So as social media managers or compilers or creative compilers, like we got to understand that we must use each one of these platforms individually with their own strengths, okay, to be able to really make our content fly on air. So I've used this quite often. Twitter really works for being able to test your audience just beforehand on a certain like in a certain context, whatever it may be. I'll be like, okay, cool. Like let me see, touch, let me get some feelers out where people stand on something that's just like a yes or no question. You understand? And then from there, I can also, I mean, I can use that also on my show. But the thing is that I don't want to be able to use the, I don't want to use the direct thing. I just, it's not a maybe, it's not a might, it's not a whatever it is. I don't want to use the direct thing that I posted on to Twitter, Facebook, whatever it is, so that I can just repeat that content. Okay. So for YouTube, for example, it's great to obviously have extended interviews, right? So instead of, let's say, posting, oh, what happened on the show, like no one cares. Then why would they tune into the show itself? So the thing is, like, for example, YouTube, great place to, let's say, have your guests there and do behind the scenes stuff, or let's say you even do behind the scenes of how you put your show together, or whatever it is that you would have specifically YouTube related stuff. Same thing for the podcasting. Same thing for pretty much every single one of these platforms. You got to do something original and something that adds value once again to the whole broadcasting process. Okay, move me out of the way. Let's get the basics. I know you've heard this before, but let's go through it one more time. Remember, you're going to take your show. I'm just going to remind you, you take your show and you go and you check all of these things. Have I done all these things throughout the Snoop sessions that we've obviously been carrying on with? But the thing is more important. So I say now, as we move into the last say week or two of our broadcasting, but also the last couple of weeks of our learning. Do you understand? And well, and you're going to go back on air. And you're going to start applying this, like I say, quite heavily and quite aggressively. Okay. So our service elements, right? So service elements from IDs to stings to full-bodied links to news to sports to promos to spot placements. Everything has to be in the right place. Otherwise, there is misbalance, and then there is chaos in the show. That's just the way they've been teaching you from first year, from when you built your first plot, so that you can understand what it is that needs to go where and when and how you need to do it. Enthusiasm, and your passion and your buy-in. Well, I mean, you know what? If you work for any company, I don't know of so picture an employee, right? Picture an employee that openly, verbally is 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 dismissive of where they work. And I'm not saying, oh, they say bad things. They just don't say any good things at all, which doesn't make any sense. I mean, look at it on air. Like, you've got to really have full buy-in. Like, full buy-in comes in from passion. Agree? From every song that you play, okay? Where you look, if you don't like the song, no one cares. Like, you play the song because they like it, and you say, well, "This is a great song. I love it. It's absolutely like unique coming from, let's say, Katy Perry. Like, I never heard this kind of style before. Like, I really want to sell that type of thing. I want to keep going on there. Digital activations, cross promoting other shows. Like, you want to be able to say, oh man, there's some great stuff happening on our breakfast. You know, this week you can win yourself some great money, some great prizes, and or you can just listen to some awesome pranks that are happening, whatever it may be. I don't know. The things that we want to be able to make sure that we are a team and we are selling the product. You understand? So absolute buy-in with a lot of enthusiasm and passion is, I wouldn't say it's special for an employee to do that. I would say it's, again, mandatory to do it. So it has to be done. If you don't, how can you expect to listen to dramatic silence? Okay, promote, cross promote other shows, the web page, social media handles, and content that exists on there, any competitions, etc. And your time management is always manage your time, right? It's part of your skill set, and it's mismanagement of time that is not tolerated. Okay, let's look at performance. Okay, so we look at performance. So some of these obviously cross over and they blend that we've looked at, okay? But energy, no matter how you feel, you have to bring all your efforts to your work, right? Because the listener doesn't know about, let's say, and I'm not trying to be a dismissive of it. Like, if you have personal issues, you should go to your station manager and say, like, I need a couple of days off. I actually need to process what is going on with my life. If I'm sick, like, don't force it. You will sound terrible. The show will sound terrible. Get someone else to fill in for you. And I know it's difficult for us. Like, I mean, we want to go to work. We love, obviously, the jobs that we do. And the thing is, it's just you will always bring something that's quite mediocre to your delivery or your product. And so rather stay at home or rather figure it out. and your boss will understand, okay, because you respected the product or the brand, okay. Character, okay, we want unique individuals on air. Be sure that you bring your A game to your show, amplifying your personality by, I say, with about five, because why, man? The thing is that it's theater of the mind. We want to be bigger than we are, but not in a way that's disingenuous. Do you understand? We want to command attention. We want to be memorable. We want to be unique and that type of thing. You understand? We want to be able to say, oh, I know Chris. Chris is different from whatever, 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 whatever. Because naturally, you are different and unique as a human being. So, like, capitalize on that. You understand? We want to be someone that captivates an interesting individual. Do you understand? I want to captivate that notion of an interesting individual that people want to listen to. Be authentic. That's really one way that you are going to captivate people. Never put on a farce of who you are on air. It will require half your attention to maintain it, which could then have gone towards effort in your show. Make sense? Right? Now it's quite plain and straightforward. Chemistry. Now, if it's not team chemistry, it's chemistry between you and your listener. Charismatic people, right, know how to create chemistry amongst like you and an interviewee. Like I say, you and a live caller, you and someone who's about to win a really big prize on your show, etc., etc. We want to be able to build like a little bit of a room, like a studio of chemistry that just exudes across um, all those radio waves, and people just love it. Again, the charismatic feel, that magnetic attraction, that we want to be able to bring over. Talking to or talking at the listeners. At it's almost condescending. It's disrespectful, and talking to your listener. Now that changes everything. Like I was saying earlier, this is like the most important thing in radio. Like we are present because we are presenters, right? Present people talk to people. Okay. And it changes everything, man. It changes everything. The way that you do sell a product, the way that you do talk to them about their mom and let's say a fight that they've had or whatever it may be, or the loss of a child, or like their biggest achievement and milestone in their life, whatever it may be, right? Talking to a person changes everything, not only in terms of your execution, but the way that you're prepping your show, the way that you decide what it is that you want to say to these people, like or to this person, right? Changes everything. Okay. All right. Last time, like I said, it was going to be a short one, right? Imaging and money matters. Okay, so I want to kind of leave in terms of the money matters thing. I'm going to just say, look, I mean, understand that when you bring in, it doesn't matter what your textbook says at this point. Not that it's not important; it's super important, right? But for me, like I say, if we want to close it up with where it is that your I mean the station's like income and revenue comes from. That for me is what we consider money matters. Looking after our product, making sure that, for example, imaging, is a basic example. Imaging exists to clean up and add silk to your show, and it also is mandatory to identify a brand, right? Your brand is what brings in money. Your brand needs to be entertaining above all. Entertaining. No great radio has ever been achieved without great entertainment. And the thing is that everything that we've spoken, right, everything, right, will obviously affect your bottom line. Okay, right. So here's a practical, and it's something that we'll do continuously. Apply the important half dozen from Valerie Geller. Valerie. It's one of the words that I must stumble over. Valerie Geller. Must open my mouth when I did. Okay, the important half dozen to show your snoops and to apply to your show snoops and see how well that you fare. So every time you do a snoop, like let's check the important half dozen and see what are you lacking on, what are you lacking on, and the next time don't continue to lag on it, just fix it. It's that easy, man. It's your job. Suggest improvements for areas in which the show is not reaching all requirements. I said that almost like a politician. Not. Um, Reaching all requirements. We want you to do better. These particular tips going to help you be great. Okay. So I'm going to stop that screen sharing. I'm going to see you in class. And obviously, again, Rory and Wayne will also be seeing you then. Have a good